Alright, so greetings and welcome back. So this is part 2 in creating our own custom chip form control. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, reach out to us in the comments for any help, tips, and suggestions. Right, so this is the second part. Right, so there's some internationalization I want to take care of. Right, so we have our chip functionality. Right, but we we want to be able to default provide these values, and then we want to try to leverage I18M for this, right? So what I'm gonna do, so let's get that started. So what I'm gonna do, I have my chip fields here, right? So what I want to focus on is my chips, chip params, right? And I believe suggestions, right? Is an array of strings, right? So I believe filtered fruits, right? So it looks like from here, I want to see apple. So it looks like they have their all fruits here, right? So instead of all fruits, let's say, so instead of this dot all fruits, let's say this dot params dot, right? And then that'll just be an empty array of string. So I'll just to say for now, wait, provide some sample values, right? And what I'm doing here is basically default, right? I basically just want the developer to understand how they're supposed to go about using it, right? So now those are my values here. So I'm going to provide a placeholder. And it equals your value, then press enter to see it appear. Right, so that's what I want to go ahead and do. So this placeholder is going to be binding. So let's say params placeholder. Right, so every time I really provide a bracket around an attribute, right, that means a placeholder, right? So here you kind of see that this is like the tag, this is like the type of element I'm going to show, and then everything in Perthball is basically attributes, right? Once an attributes is in brackets, right, that means it's going to take from the JavaScript. But if there's no attribute around the brackets, if there's no attribute about the brackets, it's going to take it at its face value. Right, so I have that in play. So now I want to use filtered. I guess I could use filtered fruits, right? I don't want to do too much refactoring, but now I kind of want to just go ahead and provide the values I want to provide here, right? So from here, I would say suggestions, right? So now I want to go into my translations file. I want to go to my collegiate sign up. And I want to go over here, suggestions. You know, I'm thinking to myself, let's see how this looks. want to kind of import this. So I think that was a value, but then I just missed out on the type of benefits, right? So, oh, so that doesn't exist, right? So collegiate sign up name, dot fields, dot social media handles, dot suggestions, map, entry, and then I say index 0. And then what I want to go ahead and do, I just want to return this as a string. Plus index 0. Right, so those are going to be my values. Right, so I believe what's I provide. Okay, so it goes straight into the control. So I kind of want that for them. What I actually want is that once they click a value, right, then it'll just pop up here and then they'll continue to fill it out, right? So let's try to see if you can modify that. So twitter.com, I'll just put LinkedIn right now, I think. .com, Instagram. I'm pretty sure Instagram has a different Reddit, and I believe Tumblr. Ooh, I'm really not familiar with my social media handles. And then I think wonder if there's a sports if there's a sports social media, but I think that could be us. We could actually become we could actually become a social media, a sports social media, right? So let's try to look at that functionality, right? So now I got my values uploaded, but let's try to take a look at that functionality. Let's find option selected. So, so not necessarily, right? I want to go ahead, right? So this logic here, right? I don't want to necessarily add it in, necessarily give user. Oh, okay, is this a control? All right, so I'm thinking to myself, this is some sort of control, right? So form control is fruit control. So this dot fruit control dot set value, right? Is going to be my value right there. So fruit control set is set to null. Kind of don't want that to happen, right? So they start to type, and so on, and then they'll be able to enter it. All right, so that takes care of that. All right, so now I think what I want to do. Hold on to this. Because I'm definitely going to use this later, right? I believe it's on window.keydown. Down. Once I hit enter, so I want to listen for the enter key. Right, so because once I hit enter, then what I really want is for this to be added. I think that's that, right? So let's kind of look that up. Let's enter Angular. Right, so Right, so it looks like you have, so key down, enter. All right, so looks like I could just go ahead and leverage this. Let's go ahead and try to leverage that here. Definitely don't want to write too much JavaScript. Um, I was thinking about using host listener, but we could definitely use this logic, right? Line again. So save. So log this dot fruit control dot value. Look at one, if you did. Not too interested in the event itself, but I'm interested in this value. Okay, so when I enter, I'm not really seeing anything. Right, so I'm not too sure. Okay. Okay, so key down, right, only happens when I'm on Instagram. So let's kind of see that here. This is the case. I click out. Right, all right, so nothing's going to happen unless I hit enter. All right, so I get to see my value. All right, so that's good. So I believe all I simply have to do is just say and then I would say this dot lose patch value. Set value is null. Nice. Well, look at that. Look at that. So now, and then I'm going to say I want to say emit event. I want to say emit false because every time I hit enter, right, I don't want this form to come up again. Only that when I start typing, I hit it again, right? So that functionality is working so far, right? So look, Material Chip had so much that we needed to do, so much that we needed to. Right? I don't even think I need this add button anymore, add functionality, right? So I know this is add, so I'm just gonna provide it here, make it as add, right? So the function that they had in Angular Material, right? I could just go ahead and just get rid of that. So my add is only just two simple lines of code now. Really, really nice. Right? And I'm even thinking to myself if this is even needed. Right? So I even need my view child at this point. Maybe I do. Maybe the autocomplete does. Right? That's some error from a third-party library that's in here. Right? So that takes care of that. Right? So go ahead and see how this looks. Right? I basically want this to wrap. Right? So let's go ahead and see how that looks. Try to go get that to wrap. Just like flex. So I say flex flow is row and then wrap. That's nice. And also, as this grows, I kind of want to do something with the styling here. I don't want this to grow too far, right? I think as you can see, right? So that kind of grows too far, right? Everything needs to still be contained in its box. right? It definitely has, it's definitely able to shove everything out of the container before then. All right, so I think what I want to do is I want to include flex center column here. Okay, it says undefined mixin, flex column center. I like I like a flex center column. I like how it sounds. I like the jazz of flex center column. So I'm just gonna go ahead and rename that mixin. Flex center column. Ooh, this is some things I don't like. Sometimes flex column center, flex center column. Right, keeps calling it undefined, but I know it's very, very defined. And it keeps on thinking. So sometimes with styles, I do not know why, but some styles with these mixins, some words the compiler is able to find, other words it just can't find. All right, so I kind of don't want flex column center. I kind of want to justify the I want to kind of align items to flex start, right? So since this isn't column based, I want my items to still remain at flex start. And there you go, right? So now basically my value is still there, but this is this still remains intact, right? So so on and so forth. Right, so I guess I suppose I could allow for empty values. I'll think about how I handle that later. Probably just filter it out if anything, not make the user remove it. So I believe the last thing I want to do, I want to implement the remove functionality. Right, so basically when this is clicked, that fruit of fruits. Alright, so click equals remove. Right, fruit. So go ahead, click it. And that value goes. Then bring it back. There it comes again. Also, it'd be nice if I could just do a little drag. All right, so I think one of the things I want to do here is this input. I want to make it a text area because I want this placeholder to grow with the size. I want to make sure that this placeholder grows in size. All right, but now it's no longer, see, and this is why I like giving classes, right? Because the uh if I change the tag, then I don't have to go back into my CSS. But now I'm going back into my CSS. So pod one, insert snippet, input 0. And I really got to style out this text area so that it can expand and contract with the placeholder. I even think it recognizes the placeholder, but we'll see. Right, so ultimately, let me kind of get away from this border here for a second. Right, so ultimately, I want this width to be 100%. Right, that's kind of refusing. So let's try to see what's going on. Right, so it's trying to, right, but the div itself is not going to. With itself is not too interested in doing that. Right, so I kind of want that to happen here, as you can see. So say width is 100%. I know there's padding on this main item here. That doesn't mean, right? So there's that. So there's that. Now I think I want the same min height. It's auto. I want to like disable that value because I really want to see that value. I really, right? So it kind of still has a min height property, I believe. See its height. Yeah, so I want to say height is auto as well. Also, maybe it's the height property that I kind of need here. Right? And then I see in my styles, right? We're using PX. I don't want to use that, so I want to use 140 over 16, and same thing, 40 over 16. Grab these values as I see them. Very careful here with this one. Font size 16, right? That's important. That's the only place it's kind of important to have that. Huh. I don't know why the image is like the way it is. 1/3. Get rid of these pixels wherever they may be. Just do a little of that, right? It's always kind of important that we're not using PX. We're just using REMs. All right, so that takes care of that for the most part. Right, then there's none. I want this to have a border for like this to be transparent. It's kind of interesting. There's a lot of padding here, so let's kind of make that border none. Should I see how that looks? Kind of interesting. It's like there's no oh, looks like the min height needs to be set to auto as well. All right, so that's kind of interesting. So it still wants to give it height. if we want to make it. Just need it to be small as I want it to be. Yeah, I kind of don't want that value. Alright, but certainly, most certainly still has a height. Wonder where this is getting set. Let's see if there's like a 71 somewhere. I'm ultimately thinking, right, if it could go smaller, it should go smaller, but maybe it doesn't want to, then well, it could do so much. Let's see. Like text area size smaller. All right, so after doing a bit of research, text area seems to have a rows and column property. So if you give it that, then I believe what that means is, yeah, although, right, I want this to resize in respect to the placeholder, right? Um, at least, for desktops, right, this value tries to, this this value here, right, is going to increase as needed. Right, so if with that, right now, what I could go ahead and do is remove the height setting. I believe this gets a height. And now I gotta learn, see what I need to do to get it to respect the placeholder size. All right, so so definitely don't want to spend all day doing this, but I kind of found a value that's probably gonna work for me. All right, so I guess I could use that here. Right, so I see a functionality here. So basically, what they're saying is that they're using JavaScript to auto size based on the placeholder, the preloaded text, as well as any additional text. So I could definitely go ahead and do that. But it looks like there's additional logic going on over here. Well, let's go ahead and implement that. So input. Text content. Right, so we're gonna name that function. Right, so really don't have access to the so really we don't have access to the element, right? And I don't want access to the element, so I'm going to use ng style, right? So let me say ng style equals text area style, text area style, right? This is known, if you want to know the type, it's known as a CSS declaration. Style means style declaration, right? It consists of CSS style rules. It wants it to be a string most likely, right? So in this case, I actually may need the element. may want to get the element ref, but I'll just grab the event. What is event? Event target, right? Event target is HTML element. Target. So it doesn't think it's a HTML. I know Angular has event too, but that's okay. I think that's okay for now. Say this dot cdref dot detect changes. So let's see how that looks. All right, so let's kind of disable some features here. Say resize. It's probably going to be as none. Let's try to get rid of. I'll just leave placeholder since it's not doing anything. Right, so I'm kind of still getting that resize. Right, so say overflow. Flow is totally hidden. Right, so it kind of resizes based on the input, but I need that input to immediately fire. Right, so and I think that's where it's important. So and I believe that's where it's very, very important that I actually get the element ref to this instead of trying to find it. Right, so let's give this text area. Right, I want to go ahead and view child. The ref HTML input element like so. Static true, so it could be available to me right away. By text area native element scroll height. So I don't really meaningfully have to use that. Once I'm working with things, right? So I also don't need its event because I'm going to call this right away. So now it regrows. So now all I need to do now is I need to call this on engine. All right, so that's not expected. Right, so that kind of expected the way it was. Let's say on after it. Yeah. Was that too bad? All right, so I think it needs a bit of timing. Use a little timer. See if that could help things out. Right. All right. So now my value. Right. So I'm kind of worried because if this sizing doesn't take place in time, then I'll probably get an issue. But I think for now this is good enough. Let me make this a function so people know what's going on. So refactor, extract to method, init, resize. text area, and then also is like describe so I could test these later. So turn, then right, so that'll be so that's intended, right? So now as these values grow and increase in size, then I kind of get my values back, right? So yeah, so definitely one thing is that the transition property is basically so what's happening with transition, like I probably transitions throughout this website, right, to get a lot of animations, but I kind of want that disabled here. Okay, so I'm actually seeing that this is not doing the best of jobs, right? This is not finding out the final scroll height element it will be, but I think this will be good enough for me right now. So I'll just go ahead and leave out that transition, and that should take care of that. I press enter, and then I think my placeholder text goes away. Right, so if you want I also believe I have access to the text area again. So I guess this is necessary so I can see my text area again. Dot value equals some sort of spacing. But if I can't get rid of that space, I guess it'll be fine. All right, yeah, it keeps on going over to the first line here. Wonder why, but it is what. You have to go ahead and check the changes. Yeah, so it always wants to like leave a space behind every time I hit enter. Not too sure why, but I guess it's fine enough for me. All right, so definitely I saw it and I'll try to figure out that later. Figure that out later. All right, so now what I want to do now. So this is all well. I think I did Control F here. Oh, I think my right. So I think that's what happened there. Right, the value doesn't really want to reset itself for the oddest of reasons, but I guess it is what it is. Right, so very well. So now I have these values, right? So I don't use all fruits. So let's continue to work on the functionality here. Right, so I'm not using separated key codes. Oh, so also if I listen for a comma, then that should be fine, right? But I think for now, I'll just use the enter. I'll just use the enter string. Fruits control, new form control, right? That's super important to be there. Fruits, right? That's being used by the application, but now fruits itself, right? So these are the selected items, right? So user inputs, right? Will be a string as well. Right, so I'll leave that as empty. Also get a value G13. Sounds good. For the most part, right? So I want to get rid of all fruits, and then I want to also get rid of fruits as well. Let's say this dot fruits. So fruits, go ahead and replace it. This dot param dot user inputs. Place them all. So definitely want to get rid of the uh, fruits, wherever it may be. User inputs. Right, and then also order set to none for the being. So that's working as intended. Right, so that's the control right there. So definitely want to work on some things here. Ultimately, what I would like pass over a foreign array. So basically, once this updated, so I definitely want to make this functionality optional. So basically, once this updates, then the value comes back because life is good, but when I hit submit, I don't get to see that value, right? So that would be that value would be social media handles, right? Which I'm getting as null. So what I want to go ahead and do back is I want to make this 5 for now. I suppose actually I'll make this 1 so I can continue to work on it. Social media handles. So now new form array. And then I definitely want to refer to previous code that I worked on. So I'm going to use options. So limit, definitely would like to apply a limit here. And while we're at it, definitely want to try to remove some modules I'm not really using anymore. So I now not using this, not using this, I'm not using this. Right. Yeah, I need my ng out in there lying around. I don't know if I need it lying around, but what I could do is I could go ahead and make it mark where it needs to be. Right, definitely let me finish this video, and then we could go ahead about that. Right, so those are my values. So when I hit submit, I definitely want to see this populated social media handles. So let's go ahead implement that logic here. I like to leave that around, but have this logic, right? Notice update form array. This is really turning out to be some reusable code that I've been thinking about. So right, so basically there's logic in the predicate. And then user inputs. I also want to rename this to chosen as well. Well, this really wasn't chosen, but just to keep. So find the user inputs. Right, now I hit submit. Should get some values, right? Not any values, probably because I didn't pass it in. I believe I need to handle it once I pass it along. So instead of rewrite my logic twice, write it right here. Right? Therefore, I don't have to put if statements on the add and remove functions. So this dot update form array. Then I would say this dot update form array. Alright, so now I go ahead and hit submit. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Values are not coming along as I expected. Right, so, right. Controls as so I go put my values. Right, so there's my values, and if I go ahead and move value, right, things get cleared up again. Right, so obviously when this is empty, right, I want these errors, and then when this is full, I kind of want this to go away. So I want this to appear. So let's try to look up for that. Let's try to implement that. All right, so it basically looks like, as I add and remove values, that my status goes back from valid to invalid. So all I want is that logic here, right? This field is required, right? As I have it for input, right? The same type of error should be coming up here. So I'm not too sure how I'm passing it in. Not too sure about these functions, what they're doing, but let's try to take a look at it. Let's see if there's any error on my end. I'm pretty sure it's like an error on my end. I have to try and figure out here. So, right, so I think this whole thing, right, needs to be null. It's looking for a value. Okay, right, so I think the value is invalid, but I don't know if it's getting picked up. Try to see. Right, so that kind of triggers, but it doesn't continue to cause my error message just to pop up. So I'm going to try to debug this. Alright, so after a little bit of debugging in my code, right, what I come to find is that even though I patched my values, it doesn't think it's dirty. So let me try to confirm that. And then dirty equals true. It's a read-only property. Let's see what methods are there. Dark is dirty. Oh, so this doesn't happen here. This happens in one method. So now if I want to see the value, I see the area, value is required. Right? That's what happens. Right? So that's right. So that's intended, right? So that is really intended. I think for looking at globals, this field is required, right? So I don't have defaults there, but I'm gonna put them in. Right? So and that's how I get this to work. So thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, reach out to me in the comments for any help, tips, and suggestions. Right? Thank you for watching.